Okay, I am going to go through this music 4x4 picture I made. Kind of got inspired after the Rixer made his top 10 favorite hip hop albums video on YouTube, and then today Warmham decided to start up a Twitch channel uh, for a Discord music server or whatever for people just to talk about review music every week on Twitch, pretty much. Uh, and so there seems to be some sort of rising interest in music with like the speedrunning nerds recently. I don't know what that's all about, but hey, I'll join into it because I'm really into music, and it seems like there's a few other people I know that are pretty into music and have similar taste in music to me, but people don't talk about it, and like it's really cool to share music, so let's do that. So yeah, I don't like making top tens. The like communities that I'm more involved in are like really visual and have lots to do with just posting like pictures. So uh, 3x3s are really common, but I like 4x4s better, so I make 4x4s, and you deal with it. All right, so I'm gonna go starting in the top left here and just go across row by row down. And I'm gonna have like a couple notes and like honorable mentions, and I might be typing into Google to like research album names and things like that because I am not preparing for this at all really. And I made this in January 2018, so it's kind of outdated, and my opinions and thoughts on things have slightly shifted over like 2 months, roughly. And what else? Oh, yeah, no face cam because I'm way too lazy to like edit in pictures later and stuff, so this is just going to be on screen the whole time. So, yeah, not going to miss anything if you minimize. All right, so first up, we have Linkin Park Hybrid Theory because, I mean, it has to be here, right? I'm 22, almost 23. I grew up with this music. This is the millennial album. If there is any album that like defines the millennial generation, it is Linkin Park, at least. Maybe not this album, maybe Meteora. I think it kind of depends. But those two, like far and away beyond anything else. I mean, everybody has to go through their Linkin Park phase, right? But like, it's such an important phase that you go through, and like, it still sticks with me. I still listen to Linkin Park sometimes. Um, like, Linkin Park just shaped so much of where my taste in music went as soon as I went past them. I guess I don't know how to describe it. Um, so I guess my music like story is that I started out. Here, we're gonna move this real quick. I started out with basically just only listening to my parents' music and listening to top 40 radio songs and things like that for pretty much, I would say, until I was around 12 years old, maybe slightly younger than that, maybe 10. My dad would burn his own CDs that I would have as albums, but they wouldn't be like one band or anything. It would just be, like a collection of singles, basically, a collection of top singles. So I have a few of those that I got for like my 11th birthday and things like that. And then I want to say when I was 12, I got an MP3 player. Um, and that was when, music sharing online and like you had Napster and things like that. That was starting to become more common. And around that time is also when I got my first cell phone, and that was when I got the Pandora app that I've been using. I know at least since 2010, um, which would put me at 13, maybe 12, 13-ish range. At least since 2010, possibly 20 or 2009. So uh, I went through. I still haven't gone through my entire thing, but I've been slowly the past month or so going through every single song that I have thumbs up on Pandora because I still use Pandora semi regularly, and I've been using it for, uh, I would say, almost 9 years at this point. So it's actually a very good representation of like how my taste in music has progressed as I've become, grown up and had my own taste in music change over such a long period of time. So, uh, yeah, Linkin Park super influential to me. I would say they're probably the seed that got planted in my head of getting me into hip hop later. Um, Numb slash Encore was probably like the number one song of theirs that I really liked, but I pretty much enjoyed a lot of their stuff, and I actually got into Fort Minor around this time. Um, and I didn't even realize later that they were connected until much later down the line, like 2, 3 years later at least. Um, So yeah, they've definitely influenced me that way. That I actually really like Fort Minor on its own as well, and that could kind of be combined here. Like I said, Hybrid Theory and Meteora are like they're almost like a combined album in my head. And I'll explain this later for some of the other entries here. That some of these albums are just merged in my head because for up until I would say very recently, like the past 2 years maybe, I never listened to music in terms of albums. Like I would never buy a CD or like listen to an album from start to finish. I've pretty much always streamed my music ever since I've had a cell phone, since I was around 13 or so, and mostly through Pandora when I was on my computer and things like that. So I never really bought physical CDs. And like I said, earlier than that, it was mostly I only listened to music when we were in the car, and then it was just whatever the top 40 popular pop radio station was playing. Um, so that was how my music taste shaped away from that and towards having my own taste in things. So that's Linkin Park, the first one on our list. Second place, not really. This isn't ordered in any way. Um, but second up on our list to go through is Deadmau5. This is for lack of a better name, but I definitely like several Deadmau5 songs and things like that. I would say The Velt is up there, definitely is one of my favorite songs. I think Strobe is probably one of the like best songs of all time. Like I don't know. I don't know what I'll do, but like maybe my funeral or something. I'll have Strobe play or something. I just love that song. I can't even explain why because it's such a basic song. I think the name fits it perfectly. Like I can't even explain what I love about it. But yeah. I just love his music. So after I got out of the top 40 and into my own more whatever tastes of basically whatever I was hearing on the radio, I would make a radio station on Pandora from that, and I would thumbs up songs based on that. And then if I found that I was thumbsing up like several songs of an artist, I would then make a radio station on Pandora of that artist and kind of progress slowly from there and branch out that way. So I had a really weird transition where of course, as you have the angsty teenager of Linkin Park, but then I also was the cringy, whatever, romantic, sad, depressed, angsty side as well. So then I unironically liked Nickelback, and I still kind of do like some Nickelback that I liked back then. Please no judging me. I got really into Lifehouse around that time, but this was when drum and bass and then dubstep were starting to take off around this time. And so I got into, I would say, Skrillex actually first and then Deadmau5 later, but both, I would say, roughly around the same time, almost together, is how I got into them. And yeah, I listened to, for so many years, so many remixes, drum and bass remixes. That was one of my most used stations on Pandora, things like that, that I did, while I was doing pretty much anything that I would want to have, a beat and energized, energy for or whatever. If I was, I don't know, it was mostly if I was like playing video games or something and wanted to, play PvP or something like that. Third here, we have probably the most recent addition to this list, and that is Saturation. I put Saturation 1 here actually because I like that cover best. However, I think my favorite. Oh, it's so tough to decide. It's definitely between Saturation 2. I think Saturation 2 is my favorite. Saturation 3 is really good, and I think it's probably the best overall project, but it's not my favorite, if that distinction makes any sense. However, Saturation 1 probably has my favorite Brockhampton song, which is Milk. Couple close runner-ups are probably Swamp off of Saturation 2. What other songs are my favorite? I really love Stains. I really love Bleach, both off of Saturation 3. Um, I mean, every single song on Saturation. Very, I've listened to very little other music in the past 6 months, other than Brockhampton, or the past almost 9 months, I would say. Um, it takes me, now that I'm going through albums, and Brockhampton has kind of initiated me actually listening to things in terms of albums now, more recently. It takes me a long time to go through an album. So this is probably the point where I should explain how I listen to music because it's semi unusual and it will kind of explain how I got into rap and hip hop more as I've aged. So as a kid, I had these CDs with maybe, I don't know, 10 to 15 songs on them that were singles that I liked that my dad had, burned onto a CD for me, things like that, or radio singles. And I don't know exactly when this started. For me, I think it's always been a thing. Like, I can't remember any time, even when I was extremely young, that I did not do this. But I listened to songs on repeat and I memorized them, like for fun. I don't know why I do this. It's just like the way that my brain enjoys listening to music the most is to know every beat, every melody, every note, every lyric, every vocal inflection, every slang, like every aspect to a song, every volume increase, decrease, pause in the beat until it comes back, the beat switch. I want to know every detail of a song memorized in my head. I can play full entire songs, I can, rap along to full entire verses without a beat just in my head, that I can, rap out along and keep my own beat without anybody without a beat existing or whatever. This is just the way I listen to music. So in order for me to get through an album, like I can't even I just listen to the album entirely from start to finish, over and over and over, like for hours at a time. I'll listen to it like 8 hours straight in a day, and obviously doing that, it's actually harder to memorize a song in isolation that way, in terms of memorizing it that deeply, I guess. Um, but you do memorize it better in context. So now, after doing this, not only do I memorize the song, but I also memorize exactly which song it transitions into, which is also an interesting, I don't know, symptom that I didn't expect to come out of that. So in order for me to like judge an album, like I can't even give a rating to the Saturation albums. I couldn't give a rating or compare them against each other until I had listened to Saturation 3, I would say for a solid month. Like it wasn't until near the end of January that it was finally kind of solidifying how much I liked Saturation 3 in comparison to 1 and 2. So, um, yeah, and so the reason why I originally kind of got into rap and hip hop, um, was solely based on the memorizing aspect, where and we'll get to this later a little bit with Eminem's Recovery here, which is kind of actually the seed of how I got into rap and hip hop as a genre. Um, was that pop songs are kind of like made to be catchy, if that makes sense. Like they're made to be memorized. They're made for millions of people to memorize them very easily so that they can get recognized, get more radio plays or whatever. Because people like hearing music that they already like. That seems kind of obvious, but it's kind of what the music industry is based off of in terms of pop music and getting songs on the radio and things like that. And so those songs didn't provide a challenge for me. And at this point, for some reason, I kind of wanted to have more challenge in a song. It's like my enjoyment of the song, like I said, it's kind of for fun to memorize it. I almost enjoy a song more when I'm having to focus on it and really get every little, tiny note out of it that I can. Um, it makes me focus on it more. It makes me pay more attention to it. I feel like I get out more out of the music. Whereas, compared to somebody who just likes the chorus, compared to somebody who knows all the backstory, all the metaphors, all the the meaning behind every word and how the song came to be and why they wrote it in that part of their life and things like that. I feel like you get so much more out of it, um, that pop music just doesn't have that really. And so, um, luckily, around this time, I'm going to say it was the song Lighters, but it might have been Not Afraid. I'm not sure which one came out first or which one. Maybe they were both around the same time. But I would say both of those songs by Eminem, obviously they're rap songs. And if you're memorizing a rap verse in comparison to a pop song, the challenge and the depth associated with that are like, one's like a puddle from it rained slightly that day, and the other's like, a Great Lake or something. Maybe not all songs, rap songs are like that, especially in some of the more recent trends in various subgenres. But certain songs definitely can be that for you. And so I got a lot more pleasure in memorizing those songs, and so I kind of just stuck with that and kept doing it. So at this point, we need to move on to Aesop Rock, The Impossible Kid. Now, I had actually heard Aesop Rock's music at several points earlier in my life and never really stuck with it or associated it with him. There was a YouTuber by the name of Bad Administrator or Vizix on YouTube, as he was actually originally. Uh, and he wrote remixes or parodies, I guess, are what you should call them, of rap songs for League of Legends characters. And I would play them on repeat while I was playing that League of Legends character as like a thematic musical role playing thing. I don't really know why I did that, but yeah, I was really into playing League of Legends for a while, and I would listen to some of his songs. And so one of his beats he did was over the beat for Daylight, which is probably the first Aesop Rock song I heard. But I only knew the beat at that point because it was the instrumental and he was rapping his own lyrics over it. So I didn't actually know the individual lyrics. Although I had heard the lyrics to it a couple years earlier than that, but I never even knew what the song was called or who it was by or anything like that. So I couldn't have ever looked it up. But I had heard the song before. And then I forget exactly how I found it originally, but somebody linked me Rings, or it was right around when Rings came out from Aesop Rock, and that was when I first kind of found him. And I mean, if you want to talk about getting meaning and depth out of rap songs, like Aesop Rock is probably the best lyricist I would say of all time, greatest in that I know of in any musical genre, period. And if you've never listened to him, it's very he's very different is the best way I can describe it. I know there was a study at one point, or maybe not a like a scientific study, but a somebody researched it or at least compiled the data for vocabulary in rappers and in their songs in their discography. And most rappers were, I would say, middling around 2,000 to 2,500 words, unique words that they had used in their discography. Some of the higher ones were closer to 3,000, like Eminem. He was a little bit on the medium to high range. I forget exactly where everybody else was placed on the list and things like that. And then you had Aesop Rock was like off the end of the scale in his own separate scale, universe at like 6,000 or 8,000 or something ridiculous. Like Aesop Rock uses every word in the dictionary that you haven't even seen outside of a video game or haven't even seen, more than 10 times or whatever because they needed to know the word cacophony because nobody's ever going to use that word, but they use it in video games and Aesop Rock uses it in songs, and those are the only two places you'll ever see that word. You know, that type of thing. So if you want to get meaning out of songs, Aesop Rock is the place to go. I mean, they're metaphors layered on metaphors layered on metaphors, and yeah, it goes as deep as in the rabbit hole as you can go. He's very introspective with his music a little bit, or personal. Um, if you like that as well, which I tend to like more and more. So yeah, Aesop Rock, The Impossible Kid. Um, Probably his more well, yeah, his most accessible album. I still need to listen to a lot more of his music. Um, I'm slowly getting through it. It does take me a while to get through, some music and things like that. But uh, yeah, Rings definitely one of my favorite songs of his. Um, TV on 10 by The Uncluded. What else? None Shall Pass is definitely up there. Mystery Fish. Daylight again. Yeah, definitely lots of good Aesop Rock songs. So now let's move on to an album that I have never met anyone else who knows of this group or band except for one friend who was the person who introduced me to them. And I know there is at least one other person, although I don't expect they'll ever see this video, but there's an off chance they might. I don't know how that would surprise me, but hey, um, I've gotten one other person into this group. So in total, I know of three people who listen to this group, and this group is Chill Bump. That is not the name of the project. That is the name of the group. It's kind of a weird name for a group. They're a duo of two guys from France. One guy does the beats, the other guy and production, and the other guy does most of the lyrics and rapping. They are in English, although it is a French-based group. So a lot of their social media like presence and posts are in French. Um, but they do most of the music that I've heard, at least in English. So this is their album, EP, LP kind of thing, Hidden Strings. I'm not sure that they have. Well, they do have an official album, which is Going Nowhere, and that was a good project. But they have released more smaller projects than this, and I can't really explain why I like this group so much. They have some of the best cohesive natural sound that I can think of. They have a really unique style. They flow. He flows really, really, really well in his in his wordplay and the rhymes and the way he just it's I think it's something to do with the French accent like coming through a tiny bit. But it's just some of the way he words things. But most of all, it's also their song topic of choice and their use of sampling. So they sample lots of long samples of quotes or of somebody talking or being interviewed, sometimes up to like a minute long. Um, they reuse some samples from 4 or 5 years ago in songs. They'll reuse in another song as kind of like a callback or a reference again. Lots of cool, unique things that they do. They have a song that uses a lot of like bird chirping. They have one song that is a lot of a record playing. Um, what else? Some really weird things. They have some pretty creative music videos, as low budget as they are. Um, Again, sort of introspective in terms of being a group that's not really on a label, that's not a popular group, but yet is still trying to find their own success. So some of my favorite tracks from theirs are Lost in the Sound, Life Has Value, Not Today. I think Going Nowhere is also a very good song. So definitely check them out if you like hip hop and rap and things like that. I would highly, highly, highly recommend them. They're pretty unknown or whatever. This is my hipster recommendation if you'd like, but I would really like more people to get into them because they deserve it. Super high quality, and yeah. All right. Sixth here we have Logic with Under Pressure. Now, I really also like The Incredible True Story, and I really also like Bobby Tarantino mixtape, but I also pretty heavily dislike Everybody. So I'm kind of on a whatever conflicted, self-conflicted, bittersweet feeling with Logic here. I think Under Pressure is his strongest project by far. I like pretty much every single song on here. I think this is his best project. While I like The Incredible True Story, I like those songs less for what they mean and more for their sound, I think. And I don't really like a lot of the skits that he started doing on that project that then transitioned more into Everybody as well. Um, and especially how he got more preachy on his on Everybody as well in his music. I think Bobby Tarantino is the second best project of his after Under Pressure, and it's only second best honestly because there's not more of it. Um, I think realistically, if there was a full album length of Bobby Tarantino, that might be my favorite project of his. It'd be very close, but at the very least, Logic project Logic's project here is definitely very good. I found him through Pandora. Um, the first song I found of his was "Till the End," and I mean I was hooked on that. That is that's honestly I think one of the perfect introductions to Logic was "Till the End." I think Gang Related is also quite good. Under Pressure is pretty good. Um, there's so many good songs in this actually that I like a lot of them for different reasons. I really like Nikki as well. Some of them are a little bit cheesy or corny or cringy a little bit if you take the lyrics too seriously on face value, I think. But there's a message behind them of again him being an independent artist and how he's risen to popularity a little bit. And yeah, I still enjoy it. I think part of why I like Under Pressure the best was that it was because he had really gotten super, super popular and it was kind of his first album, full length album project. And I think that made it a little bit more real and more personal. And I think it came through in the music. All right, Eminem. This probably will go on for a while because Eminem is by far the artist that I've listened to the most music from. Um, I do have a Spotify. I'm not going to link it because I don't actually use it as much, and I only started using it more recently this year. So it's not as detailed on my music, uh, whatever tastes and things like that. I don't favorite or add a lot of songs to my Spotify. It's missing a ton, and so. But if you look on there, you will see that almost half of my songs on there are Eminem, and it's almost every song of his. I've listened to almost every song he's ever put out, every guest feature he's been on, every guest verse he's done. Um, I don't know, man. Eminem is just how I got into rap and how I got into hip hop, and that's probably super generic from like a 22-year-old white guy, but it's true. So hey, he got me into the genre of music that I'd say is my favorite now. So I can't really complain about it, even if it is kind of stereotypical. Um, I don't know what I can say about Eminem. He's such a weird person. I relate to him in a lot of really deep ways, and then there's a lot of aspects to him that kind of turn me off now. The more like when I started listening to a lot of the more Slim Shady and his earlier albums, with that persona character, whatever you want to call him. You have the Marshall Mathers LP, you have the Slim Shady LP, you have the Eminem Show. The Eminem Show is probably my second favorite project. You also have Relapse, you have Refill, you have Curtain Call, you have Encore, you have Recovery, you have Revival, you have the Eminem Show, or not the Eminem Show. You have Marshall Mathers LP2. I think I covered everything. I'm probably missing at least one or two there. I mean, the guy's been doing music for so long. He's the goat in terms of rap and hip hop. He's sold more albums by far than like anyone else. He's stuck around, for 30, 40 years at this point. The dude's insane. The dude's a legend. Um, some of my favorite songs of his are definitely the more introspective and somber and personal ones that deal with a lot of his role as being famous, his role of uh, how his world came to be, how his life has been. You've got Beautiful, you've got Mockingbird, you've got Stan, No Love. What else? Like I said, Lighters, Not Afraid, Cinderella Man, The Way I Am, like Toy Soldiers, When I'm Gone, Renegade, We as Americans, White America, Legacy, Airplanes Part 2, um, Forever, his verse on that song. So much of Eminem's music. I could honestly go on forever. I'll cut myself off there because it's already so much. Um, just listen to everything Eminem's ever done, honestly. Like I can't really recommend it. Sing for the Moment. Okay. I need to stop. I need to stop. Um, yeah. Eminem, the dude's a legend. Like I said, I'm a little bit uh put off by his earlier music now. I don't I at first the Slim Shady stuff didn't bother me when I was younger. It it's not even that it bothers me, I would say. I just don't enjoy it for what it is, I guess, as I've gotten older and more mature, frankly. Um, but I understand where he was coming from at that point, and I understand how it uh, gave him the opportunity it did to create the rest of the music that he's made. So I can't really hate on it too much, honestly. So that is what it is. All right, eighth up here, we have Nujabes with Modal Soul. If you like pretty much lo-fi hip hop, this is like the root of that. My favorite song is almost certainly Feather. I don't really know what I could say about this. I haven't actually watched. I always forget if it's Samurai Champloo or Afro Samurai. I'm pretty sure it's not Afro Samurai. I'm pretty sure it's Samurai Champloo. But I haven't actually watched that show yet, which I really need to do because I really love this album and Nujabes music in general. Um, I can't really explain it. It's kind of this jazzy, lo-fi, hip hop sound. I can't really explain it. It's a fairly unique sound, but it's not unique because it's been copied so much. But Nujabes is kind of like the root of it in a sense. There's actually a really good video by Thorin who goes over why Nujabes is not as unique in this sound as he's maybe thought of being. Um, I'll actually have a lot of various links in the description that I'll go over later of videos or channels that I think you should check out if you're interested in music that I follow that I think other people would enjoy. Um, yeah, I really can't describe this very well. Tragically, uh, he's not around anymore to make any more music. I wish there was more to listen to of his, because I think that would be very interesting. But I mean, he's made some quality music that is always somehow, I wouldn't even say relaxing because it's almost not relaxing. There's some quality to it that I can't really figure out, um, but that really sticks with you. I think after hearing it. All right, number 9 here on the third row, starting at the left, we have Life Formed with Fast Fall. How can this not be in my list? Even if I don't actually love every single song on here, maybe as much as I do some of the other albums, which is true. Because I don't really like some of the more uh, I would say mostly the lab and city-ish uh, tracks on here, but the Dust Force as a game and this album has just affected my life in the past 6 years in such a huge way that it's kind of crazy. So, I mean, it has to be on here, right? Like it just has to. I mean, my whole life kind of revolved around Dust Force for a certain period, and this is the soundtrack to it. So like it's got to be here. If this is the past 16 years or whatever of my music tastes, this has to be on here. So that's that's why it's on here. If you haven't played Dust Force, highly recommend it. If you haven't listened to the soundtrack, there's a reason it's Dust Force is almost more known for its soundtrack than for the gameplay, and the gameplay is one of my favorite 2D platformers ever made that I've ever seen. So um, yeah, I can't really praise it beyond that. You just kind of have to listen to it, and it kind of only makes sense in the context of the game and where how it affected my life and things like that. So, all right, we have Ratatat with classics. Now, after my dubstep phase, um, I sort of transitioned into, I would say, sort of a lo-fi hip hop kind of sound over time. But before lo-fi hip hop had a name, I guess. Um, Now, Ratatat isn't really lo-fi hip hop. I don't know what I would describe it as. Um, at one point, I would say they had a very unique sound, but they've similarly kind of also been copied and used as inspiration for several other various sounds to come out. Uh, but their use of guitars and like synthesizers in their melodies and things like that, and they use some kind of weird manipulation on the synthesizers. Like, I'm not sure if they used vocoders, but like they reverse some of the guitar sounds so they sound, they have like a different texture to them that you're not used to and things like that. And the keyboard on the synthesizer. So they had a really unique sound at one point, and I do really enjoy their music. LP3 is, I think, a close runner up, but definitely Wildcat is one of my favorite tracks of theirs. You have Schiller. Um, oh, I should mention for Fastfall, my favorite tracks from Fastfall. I'm not sure if your favorite color is actually on this album. Um, it's not supposed to be snowing is definitely a favorite. Most of the forest tracks, honestly. Um, Elvish Piper Academy, I want to say. Swimming While It Rains. What are some other good ones? Undiscovery. I don't think that one's on here either. There's definitely one I'm forgetting. Light Pollution. Light Pollution might be my favorite track, actually. So yeah. All right. Back to Ratatat. So yeah, Schiller and Wildcat. I would say Loud Pipes. Also really good, really up there. All right. Kendrick Lamar. If there's anyone aside from Brockhampton who has kind of influenced the way hip hop rap as a genre has been going recently, it's been Kendrick Lamar. I wouldn't even say Brockhampton has influenced it, but they're almost a product of other people's influence. So they're kind of two sides to the same coin. But Kendrick has kind of been at the forefront of the new generation of where rap and hip hop as a genre is headed. He's kind of the figurehead in front, leading it all in terms of quality and like recognition, I guess, in general. From all of the different areas kind of coalescing together, and so yeah, he's from Compton. He's made some super high quality albums that I can't really describe. And other people have probably described much better than I have because I got into Kendrick Lamar late and I did it in sort of an unusual way because I wasn't listening to things in album contexts. Um, but I mean, Rigor Mortis is very good. Let's see, what else? What are some of my favorite Kendrick Lamar songs? How Much a Dollar Cost is definitely up there. King Kunta, definitely up there. Um, All Right is definitely up there. Element off of Damn, also also one of my favorite tracks. Um, yeah, I mean, if you haven't heard of Kendrick Lamar at this point, I don't really know what to say because I feel like he's been kind of the one person that you would have heard the most about in recent years. And yeah, you should just listen to his music. I think he's a little bit hard to get into at first, although that's maybe not so true now because of how long and how, like I said, prominent he's been recently. But I think if you listen to a few of his tracks, you'll find something that you enjoy with Kendrick Lamar. All right, and here we have Run the Jewels with Run the Jewels 3, Killer Mike, and LP. Um, I didn't actually get into their music until the Bernie Sanders campaign, and that was how I found out about Killer Mike, and that was how I found out about Run the Jewels. Now I had heard of them before, but I didn't really, have a name to a face or whatever, or understand where the group was coming from. But because of the political involvement, that was actually how I got interested in this. Um, and I think actually their music isn't maybe as political as that description of how I got into them would make it sound. Nor do you have to agree with the politics. I don't think uh, that I have. My politics are, I would say, somewhat unusual in terms of uh, maybe not being mainstream necessarily, but I think they just make good music. I don't know why I somewhat have a thing for duos in hip hop. And rap groups. I think there's something about having another person there that brings the best out of both people in terms of like having a little competitive aspect, a friendly rivalry sort of thing. Even if one person is doing the beats and one person's more focusing on the lyrics. But I mean, I think you have Eminem, you've got Royce da 5'9" with Bad Meets Evil, you've got Chill Bump, um, Fort Minor. You had Jay Z collaboration. Kanye West has collaborations with Jay Z a lot. Um, there's lots of like overlap and back and forth kind of things that go on. Lots of people collaborate, of course, but um, there's something about having a consistent person there to push you on every single song. I think that brings out the best in them. I really like the flows they use, especially. Some of my favorite tracks are Legend Has It and Nobody Speak um, of Run the Jewels. I really need to listen to more of their backlog that I still haven't gone through because I think I'll actually enjoy that possibly more. But for now, they deserve a place on my list, and I know I'll probably just get more and more into them the more I listen to them. So they definitely will solidify their place here, even if they're maybe a little bit off, one of the less solid placings on here that I have so far. All right, Lindsey Sterling. I believe this is her self-titled album, her first album. Uh, as I was transitioning out of dubstep into some more atmospheric, maybe, or instrumental focused uh, music, like the Glitch Mob over here was kind of my first transition out of dubstep, I would say. Um, Lindsey Sterling, I found her first with the song Crystallize, and that was one of my favorite. It's probably still one of my favorite songs of all time. I don't know where I would put it. Maybe top 50 or something like that. I don't really know. Um, like I said, I still haven't gone through my entire list on Pandora, so it's not like I've put that list together. But I definitely kind of had a phase here where I fell in love with violin music. I also really like piano. Piano and violin are some of my two favorite instruments. Um, and so she kind of had that transition away from dubstep into violin, which is kind of like a sharp like transition left turn to make, a sharp fork in the road. But she was there to bridge that gap, and I definitely fell in love with violin music at this time. I had David Garrett, I want to say was his name. You have two cellos. There's lots of like other little small kind of uh, pieces that fit in here of other songs that I really fell in love with at this time. But Lindsey Sterling on her own, you have Moon Trance, you have Elements, you have Song of the Caged Bird. Those are some of my favorite tracks of hers. And yeah, I just I mean, it's really good violin music. I can't really describe it other than that because so much of the songs are basically just based around her violin playing. Um, but yeah, that's pretty much all I can say. I really like her music videos. They're also fairly creative. Um, yeah, she just seems like a fun, happy person. I just enjoy listening to her music. I can't really describe it much more than that. All right, Kanye West. What are we up to now? 14? Now, I put this on here. It's probably the least solid placing on this list. Uh, so if you wanted to rank these, this would probably be solidly at 16th. Um, there's numerous other albums that I could possibly put here, I think, at the moment, that I'm not sure how I would rank them against each other. And part of the problem is because I haven't been listening to things in terms of albums for very long, that I haven't really been able to solidify a solid list of albums like this. Because it's mostly been the way to decide is what albums have several or lots of songs that I really, really like. And then, well, that all those songs are on the same album. So I guess I like that album. That's kind of maybe a weird way to think of it. I don't really know. Because I think a lot of people enjoy albums in terms of them being a cohesive unit from start to finish. You know, they have a progression where they begin, where they end, how the transitions happen, how they tell a story maybe through the whole thing, how it progresses, you know, how it evolves as you listen to it. You know, you'll start an album in one place and it'll finish in a different place, and you'll have experienced a journey in the meantime that you've gone through that, you know, is a very different experience to liking a song and liking another song and liking another song, and they might be disconnected with other songs in between that you're just, you know, you enjoy, but they're maybe not one of your favorite songs, and yet solidifying that as an album you really like because of that. So I'm not sure if I maybe have a different experience than some other people because of that, but um, that is what it is. So as for other albums that could possibly go here, we have Cry Wolf with the Ghosts EP. It's not an album, but it's a possibility. Um, You have Emancipator with Soon It Will Be Cold Enough. That is definitely a possibility here. You have Foster the People with Torches. I have Fitch, who is kind of I'm not sure, chill step maybe is maybe the closest thing. He has a sort of unique sound. He doesn't have an album yet. He's only put out very small LPs and EPs, but I really like some of his songs and his sound. I could put Atmosphere here. I'm not sure which album I need to listen to more Atmosphere, but I've been getting into him more recently. I could put Big Sean's I Decided here. I could put, I'm not sure if I already said Foster the People Torches. I could put a Tech 9 project here, or maybe Chris Calico. Um, Possibly a Brother Ali project here. I could put J. Cole project here, possibly. Either 2014 Forest Hills Drive or For Your Eyes Only. I'm not really sure which one I like more, but those are definitely the top two of his that I've listened to so far. So there's definitely several options here. Now, talking about Kanye West is someone that I, again, have sort of a bittersweet, uh, whatever, feelings toward, because I have some songs of his that I really, really like, and then I have some songs of his that I expressly hate. It's interesting because he's been someone that's always kind of been on the fringe of music that I've listened to. Um, you know, when I had the dubstep phase and things like that, he was kind of somewhat involved in that. I would say Stronger is maybe somewhat of a dubstep inspired song. And you had a lot of remixes of it, of course. Um, you know, you have some various collaborations he's done with people like Jay-Z and things like that, where I think some of that sound uh, was maybe inspired from or pulled from a little bit in terms of the beat style choices and things like that, in terms of, you know, the bass and things like that, and drums especially. And Kanye West kind of branched off from that a little bit into utilizing the human voice, I think, especially uh, alongside it in a really fairly unique way, especially at the time. Uh, and now he came at it from that producer viewpoint, you know, to start with. And so his production is always pretty solid. It's almost always to do with the lyrics and the vocals in his songs that I have issues with. So some of my favorite songs of his, Black Skinhead is really up there. Runaway is one of my favorite songs of all time. Um, Through the Wire, definitely one of my favorite songs. Um, what else? Ultralight Beam is really good. Uh, I got into 808s and Heartbreak a little bit on various songs there that were kind of more of the top 40 pop singles that got played. Love Lockdown, Heartless, that those got played, things like that. So he's always been kind of on the fringe of what I've listened to, but I've never been like, oh, Kanye West is my favorite artist right now. So that's why he's maybe the weakest on this list. Whereas each one of these, I probably went through a solid phase where each one of these was my favorite artist for at least a little while. At least like 3 months or something maybe. And so, um, part of my issue with Kanye West is I don't think he has a single project that stands out above the rest, to me, because I haven't listened to him that focused, for a period of time like that. I think My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy is possibly the top one, which is why I put it here. Um, and I knew it was the least solid one when I made this list in January, and it's actually gotten weaker. I would say other ones I previously mentioned have actually kind of rose up because I've, like I said, been getting into, especially Atmosphere more recently, and so that could overtake it at some point. But this is kind of like the flex spot, I guess. Secondly, if I had to pick a second place here, a runner up, I think Graduation is pretty close. Again, I would just have to listen to more of his music, I think, to really solidify how I thought about his music. But at the time, I put it here. Might disagree with that now. Might not have put him here, but I'm too lazy to remake this picture just to change one picture on it. So that's where it is for now. All right, 15th here we have the Glitch Mob. I forget what this album is actually titled, which is dumb. Is it Animus Vox? That's only a song though. Um, I can't remember what this album is called. I don't know why that slipped my mind somehow, but it did. But yeah, I really like the Glitch Mob. Um, what are some of my favorite songs? Between Two Points is definitely up there. Animus Vox is definitely up there. What else? Bad Wings, Fortune Days. Those are definitely up there. Some of my favorite songs, from them. And so as I transitioned away from dubstep into more instrumental focused music, like I already mentioned, Emancipator, Soon It Will Be Cold Enough. I think Black Mill's Miracle could also be a contender for a spot here. Um, I would say those three albums, The Glitch Mob, Emancipator, and Black Mill, I had a solid period of at least a year, I would say, where those were the three primary albums that I listened to variations of going through those albums. And Ratatat was around this same time, um, that I got really into. This was also a little bit of a piano phase. I had Ronald Jenkins sort of around this time. Pendulum also around this time. That could maybe be a contender, uh, with, is it Hold Your Color, I want to say, uh, for that Kanye West spot. Things like that. So that instrumental kind of style, and those each of those people I mentioned do have a bit of a different sound to them that I can recognize, but I think when I initially got into them, they did sound similar to me. Um, I can't really explain it. They are just more instrumental focused. There's not a lot of lyrics in most of them. Um, they're more focused on the sound of, the melody of what you're listening to. They are more uh, electronic based, synthesizer based. Um, yeah, like I said, they were kind of my transition away from dubstep into the instrumental kind of, and then adding lyrics on top of the instrumentals kind of transitioned me into rap and hip hop, I would say. So that was probably a transition of at least 4 years, I would say, that I went through probably when I was between 16 to 20, I would say is when that transition happened. Maybe 15 to 19, somewhere around that range. And finally, we have Skrillex here with Bangarang. Now, I'm kind of combining this spot with Scary Monsters and Nice Sprites, because those two albums are kind of merged in my head as being my Skrillex phase, I guess. Um, I definitely had a solid Skrillex phase. I don't really know how else I could describe it other than that. I listened to pretty much all of the songs on Bangarang, all the songs on Scary Monsters and Nice Sprites, and almost exclusively them and various other stereotypical dubstep songs around that time. For like people who got into dubstep via Skrillex, kind of. Um, again when I was probably around 15 or 16, probably closer to 15, I would say. And Breaking a Sweat is, I think, my favorite song of his that he did in collaboration with The Doors, which is kind of a weird merging of prior to having my own songs in the top 40 radio to listen to. I would obviously only listen to whatever my parents listened to. I think that's a pretty common thing. And my parents, um, the music they listen to is from like the 60s and the 70s and the 80s. And so The Doors, you have the Eagles. I do have some of the 90s and things like that of uh, some of the more mainstream, I would, whatever bands that came around later, like Red Hot Chili Peppers, I know is a big one that that I like several songs from. The Goo Goo Dolls, but then I also have Bon Jovi. Um, Around when I had the Linkin Park phase, I also was big into Breaking Benjamin. So yeah, there's been lots of various influences, and so it was weird to have one of my favorite songs, "Breaking a Sweat," be from this new whatever strange artist that my parents didn't understand, this strange style of music, genre of music that came around dubstep in Skrillex, merging with The Doors, which is, one of my dad's favorite uh, bands that he listened to of all time, And it was weird to be able to listen to a song that has both elements with him like that and have him kind of like it. I don't think he really likes it. He's definitely not someone that's a fan of that type of music, but I feel like he could kind of understand what I liked about it, and then I could kind of understand what he liked about it because I did, there's what else? What other dubstep song do you hear that has like an organ playing as part of like the main melody in the dubstep song, and like it fits in the dubstep song. It's not like it has an organ, like it's not this weird, separate uh juxtaposition juxta wow juxtapositioning thing that's like janky on your ears or anything. It fits cohesively with the sound of the song, and so yeah, that's a bit strange, but yeah. So that's been my progression of musical tastes. I would say as I've transitioned away from having my music tastes dictated by the radio and my family and of course my parents and things like that, and transitioning it into entirely finding my own uh, French duo groups that nobody else has ever heard of over time. And so that's been a very strange thing. And I definitely have gotten more interested in music the more I've found my own path through it. So several YouTube channels and things that I should mention that I think other people might be interested in if they've actually listened through this so far. I'm checking the recording time now. Dang, this is 53 minutes long. That's insane. I did not think I would be talking for that long. I expected this to be like 20 or 30 minutes. So we have, of course, as I previously mentioned, the Rixer's video on his top 10 hip hop albums, which kind of inspired me to make this video. I was going to do the previous day, but then I was tired and my throat was really bad after work. Um, because my work involves me talking for almost the entire 8 hours of it, and my throat was very scratchy and kind of painful last night, and so I didn't want to record. And it's starting to get scratchy again, but we'll finish up here. So I also mentioned Warm Ham made twitch.tv/silent disc. That's all one word, silent disc, and that'll be, I think he said Sunday at 8 p.m. EST. Um, for that show, and he's going to go over 3 albums or 3 songs, something like that, that he liked, and then one which is voted on, pulled by users or users submitted or something like that. So yeah, if you're involved in speedrunning and enjoy music, check that out. It's definitely going to be, hopefully a place where people can share the music they like and, get more people interested in things, and you can find new music hopefully through it that you enjoy. I've definitely found um, I forgot to mention this. Uh, I found Brockhampton through a speedrunning stream, and I think that speaks for itself. I believe the quote when I heard it on Fish McMuffin's stream was, "You haven't heard of our Lord and Savior Brockhampton yet?" And that was the question he asked me when I asked what the song name was when he was playing it. And that I would say Brockhampton is now one of my top 5 favorite groups of all time. In 3 albums or whatever that they've released within 6 months. I mean, they're crazy. I love Brockhampton. Shout outs to Don McLennan. He's definitely a favorite member of that group. Anyway, in addition to that, so we have Anthony Fantano, the internet's busiest music nerd with the needle drop. Um, if you haven't heard of him, he's probably the best album reviewer out there in terms of actual having a consistent taste that you can use and a rating system that you can use to judge whether you'll like something or not. He, if you want to hear somebody who can explain why an album is good and why an album is bad and what you like about an album in a way that actually sounds intelligent and cohesive and has thought behind it and like someone who actually knows what they're talking about in terms of music, Anthony Fantano is the place for you because instead of just saying I like a thing, Anthony Fantano will explain why he likes the thing and use terms and uh, descriptive adjectives that make you actually understand what something sounds like when he's speaking words. I don't know how he does that, but I feel like when I hear Anthony Fantano describe the sound of an album, I understand what it sounds like without having heard the album, which is very strange, and Anthony Fantano's somehow able to do that. Digibro's Turntable. If you follow anime YouTuber people, you may have heard of Digibro. He has a music channel. He is how I kind of got more into Aesop Rock off of his. I'm not actually sure it's on the Turntable channel, but he goes over TV on 10 in a full video. You can probably just search Digibro TV on 10 and find the video that way. And he has a different taste in music than I do, but I got him into chill bump, and I think I understand his taste in music at least. And he does make his own music. Personally, I'm not as big a fan of his music, uh, but that's more of a personal taste thing. Um, I don't really think it's necessarily bad quality or anything. I think it's just not for me, which I think is fine. So if you'd like to find a independent dude who makes his own music and also has things to say, and he's also fairly good at explaining himself because he does anime analysis on YouTube, and that's like his main job is having a fairly popular YouTube channel from that. You can definitely go there. What I really like about his channel actually is his explanation of his own music, his own albums. So you might see me in the comments of those when he goes over them. He's one of the very few musicians who will go through like every song on an entire album and explain, where did the beat come from? What state of mind was he in when he wrote the song? What were some of the lines that he really enjoyed writing that stood out to him? What does he remember? It's like almost like what does he remember about writing it? Um, and that's almost he's not going to remember everything. He's going to leave tons of stuff out, but it's almost more interesting to know that he's leaving stuff out and know it's because it wasn't important to him and the things that he's remembering are the little things that all were important to him, and even though they're kind of scattered around, like I don't know. It's a very interesting thing. It's a very interesting insight into someone who makes music like that. Um, so if you like that kind of thing, you'll also probably like Genius and their Deconstructed and Behind the Lyrics series. If you don't know Genius, it used to be Rap Genius, and now it's just Genius. They have artists on a lot of time to go over the lyrics of their songs and their verses and explain the meaning behind them. Do kind of a similar thing. They're a lot less in depth, where as a Digibro video might be 2 hours going over his own album. The Genius videos are generally, I would say, under 6 minutes, and generally it's just a single, and they go over maybe one verse, maybe two verses max. And so I wish they were longer. I wish they were more in depth, but they're still good little bite-sized things you can get. If you really like hip hop, I highly recommend Lyricology 101 by Andre Gaynor. He still doesn't have a tagline yet, although he actually does now. And yeah, he basically explains hip hop songwriting, lyric writing, rhyming, rhyme schemes, flow patterns, everything to do with hip hop, pretty much. If you want, I would say, to learn about hip hop and rap on a more academic level, I would highly suggest Lyricology 101. It's a good name for a channel because it's almost like a college level course on learning hip hop songwriting and that kind of thing. So, I mean, yeah, definitely highly recommended him. Tabby also does album reactions slash reviews, and I know reaction videos get kind of a bad rap, but Tabby is different than a reaction video because he doesn't play up his reactions to anything. In fact, there's several of his videos where he's just bored the whole time listening to it, but he also is able to make you understand why he thinks the way he does about an album, and also why he loves and just unapologetically loves and is super into the music that he's into. And he also makes his own music. I haven't listened to all of his album was White Trash is the name of it. Um, I haven't listened to all of it uh, because honestly, I got too into Brockhampton. Sorry, Tabby, if you ever see this. Shout out, dude. You're dope. Love your videos. But he also does album reviews. He's critical of artists, which I actually really like, and artists seem to take what he says seriously, which I think is actually fairly unique. You know, when Tabby makes a video, several times now the artists have responded to his video, saying thanks for the review and the critique and things like that. And I'm not sure if he knows the gravity of that, um, but that's an unusual thing, and that means they're listening to what he's saying. And he's not being overly harsh. He's not being overly excited. He's not being overly enthusiastic. He's not being overly soft. He's being himself. And you can get real honest feedback from a guy like that. And so the artists are listening to hear the honest feedback of just like an average dude who, yeah, he makes his own music. He's a bit more knowledgeable about music than your average listener will be. But that's honestly good because your average listener is going to buy a concert ticket. They might buy some merchandise. They might buy the album. But Tabby's going to be the one who tells every single friend of theirs to listen to your album and gets all 10 of their friends to go to the concert and all 10 of their friends to buy the album and buy the merch and buy the t-shirt, and he's going to get all 10 of their friends to buy the Saturation box set. Like Tabby's the dude who is into music not for himself, but for music in general, like as an art form, I guess. It's the passionate people that really like expand music into being more than just a personal thing, which is also kind of maybe partly why I'm inspired to make this video. Then you've got Hip Hop DX and The Company Man, which used to be one channel uh, with Justin Hunt and then kind of split off. I'm not really sure what the reason was behind that. I don't really follow it. But they both make good videos. I believe roughly weekly. Um, Hip Hop DX has the breakdown, but I think the Company Man also has the breakdown. I don't know if there's like a copyright dispute over that or something, or it's trademarked. Hope whichever one, if I'm misattributing it to one or the other, doesn't sue me. Anyway, but yeah, they both go over hip hop stories of why are some of the artists that are considered the greats of all time in terms of the genre, why and the story of them, and why some people consider them some of the greats of all time, and why they're not just another average one-hit wonder or somebody who's popular for a little while and then falls off, but nobody really holds them in this high regard, whereas with others they do. And they give the pros and cons, I guess. They give the positives and the negatives of a person, of why people say this person's great and why people say they're honestly not that great, and why they maybe aren't the best person to represent the genre, or why maybe they weren't as good as people remember them or have rose-colored glasses for, or maybe certain aspects of the environment around them at the time allowed them to appear better than they were, maybe. There's lots of different aspects to it. Hip hop culture is kind of unique in that aspect where nobody really cares who's the best pop artist of all time. I mean, they kind of do, and it's probably like Michael Jackson or something. But like, nobody consistently says what were the pros and cons of different pop artists. Like, why did Britney Spears, what are the pros and cons of Britney Spears versus Taylor Swift versus Katy Perry? Like, nobody does that. I don't know. Maybe that's just a world that I'm not involved with, and maybe it does exist, but as far as I know, that doesn't really happen. At least not to the depth that it does with hip hop, at least. And I think that's partly due to, like I said, the way that just the nature of the genre is that hip hop is going to be deeper compared to pop music, which is half of it's ghost written, half of it's written, mostly for the chorus or whatever. So I think partly it's got several contributing factors to that, but um, you'll get out of it what if you're interested in it. Some other two last mentions here. You have polyphonic. I'm not really sure how I would describe their videos exactly. Um, they're kind of just like musical analysis videos. If you've seen like Nerdwriter, they're kind of similar to that, but focused on music or focused on the story of a music artist or actor band or something like that. Um, they're a bit more general. They're a bit more mm, like broad, viewpoint based. But I think they're good and they're at least interesting to listen to. And there's honestly not a lot of music content and stuff out there, so obviously there's lots of music. You'll never listen to enough music, but there isn't really enough analysis of music or people talking about music in a good way, I think. So it's definitely something where it's kind of lacking, and they're definitely filling a gap there. So if you're hungry for more of people talking about music content rather than listening to music content, uh, that's a place to go. And Vox Earworm is the last one I'll mention here. Just a good series on music and just various things. They've got ones from what songs figure skaters decide to play their performances for in the Olympics, and then why rappers mention Grey Poupon, in the same series. So it touches on a broad spectrum of different things that they're generally just a weird kind of tangential, interesting, sidetrack that you can, somebody might wonder, why do rappers mention Grey Poupon? Why do Olympic skaters skate to certain music and not others? And those answer those questions. So, yeah, that is where I will end it for now. Like I said, check out all of those. If you want to make your own video, I will definitely watch it. Tweet at me or something. Uh, at Riokaii is a place to find me. Yeah, that's it. Enjoy music. Music's awesome. More people need to be into music.